welcome back into Bufnagle the podcast. I'm Zach, and as always, I'm joined by Rafe. Rafe, how are we doing today?
Hey, Zach, it is a wonderful, brilliant, sunshiny day here. I'm recording today in warm and cheerful Fayetteville, North Carolina. Came down to spend a little time being grandpa. Grandpa is just like father, but it's grander.
It's responsibility.
Well, it is. Well, it is a responsibility. It's a nice thing because you can do the things you want. You don't have to do the hard stuff. I got to go to bed and get up in the morning and I was like, wow, did she wake up? So I was able to avoid the midnight diaper changes and the midnight feedings and stuff like that. But it's going real well. We have a very nice little granddaughter here, and both parents are happy and stable, and that's a really good thing.
All right, that's what matters, and that's all the good things. So
those are the good things. I need to, of course, to thank all our listeners. All of our listeners, all 10, 100, 100,000, however many are out there. We're thankful that you're here, and we appreciate you taking your time to hear what we have to say. Hopefully, we're providing some nuggets you can take with you on your day, something you learn maybe, or something you decide never to. Gosh, I don't ever want to do that. Whatever it is, we like that. We talked, Zach, a couple weeks ago. Well, it was last fall. We went through these 7 adages, 7 wise sayings, 7 Zachisms.
Sayings from Zach. That's an oxymoron if I've ever heard one.
Right. And so we talked about the group as a whole. And then a couple weeks ago, we went and we did the growth coming from failure. We spent an episode on that, and we're going to talk. And then after that, we did the 2020 reflection, and a lot of those things were. We got a good deal of feedback on those, and it was surprising to us, at least, that I don't want to say hit a nerve is a little bit strong. I've hit nerves. Hit my funny bone. We didn't quite do that, but there are a number of people who appreciated what we had to say, particularly Zach with what you had to say. And we're going to do another one of those today. We're going to talk about strength within vulnerability, which was number 5, I think, in your list.
Number 5, yeah.
Number 5, and we're going to start, and we're going to spend the day on strength and vulnerability, which is it's an interesting topic, certainly from a group that has talked about Lewis and Clark, and we've talked about economics, and we've talked about the calendar, and now we're talking about strength and vulnerability. I never know what's coming up here. Here we go. Let's see what we got. Strength and vulnerability. Zach, tell us what you mean by that.
Yeah. So for me, a lot of this kind of actually relates back to a quote. Like, I feel like most of these mantras or phrases there's a quote that kind of resonates and ties the whole thing together. And if you'd like me to, I can read that quote.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. Take your time. Tell us what, and this is from
Marianne Williamson. It's from a book that she published in, I believe it was 1992, called A Return to Love. And the quote.
Wait, before you go, let me get you before you go further, because I got to do this, because I know there are a number of people. Marianne Williamson has her fans. Marianne Williamson has her detractors. And one thing Zach and I have always said is, if you can bring us something that's true and good, I don't care who you are, we will take what's true and good. And you don't have to agree with Miss Williams' politics and policy plans, but if she's bringing something good, we got to take that. To throw something out like that without that's just silly. That's a bad idea. So we support all that's true and good. So what did Marianne Williamson say that moved you, Zach?
Yeah. So here we go. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Yeah, hey, that is good stuff from Miss Williamson. She wrote that in '92. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
and
did that in '92 in a book. I'm not exactly familiar enough with the book to speak on it, but she has done lots of work in social justice communities, and
yeah,
I think it's kind of a lesson or a thing she learned from doing that work, and she put it into a poem slash that quote, and it has resonated with myself, and I know a bunch of other people that I have met is also mentioned and referred to numerous times in the Coach Carter movie with Samuel L. Jackson.
yeah. So Coach Carter movie is a story of what, a high school basketball team.
In the Oakland area of California.
Yeah, so it's not what you would say an affluent high school. A group of young inner city kids playing basketball, and Coach Carter
Yep.
comes in, and it's a classic. It's a classic good high school sports movie. But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean things can be campy, but that doesn't mean they don't hold truth. And if they have truth in them, that's a good thing. A couple things struck me in this quote that you read there, and one thing I think about is I think about fear a lot and how. What fear does to us. There's a couple. There's a thing I think. Okay, and you can it's just like it's either nutty or it's brilliant or somewhere in between. Is fear? I believe very fully that Satan speaks through fear. Okay, and the reason I know that is that if you read the Gospels, every time God talks to man, the first through an angel means messenger. Every time the angel talks to man, the first thing the angel says is, fear not. All right. And that was a big piece of JP2's papacy, was this idea of don't be afraid. So whenever you're scared, you got to look at that and you got to say, who's talking to me here? Is this wise caution talking to me? Or is this fear here intending to bring me down? And I think Miss Williamson hits that on the head. She said, you are a child of God. Do what you were built to do. Don't be afraid.
We're meant to shine. We're meant to shine as children do. And when we get fearful of situations, when we are scared of situations, our light becomes diminished, and we kind of live in a shadow, in a veil, and we don't get to have that light shine. But when we get to have that light shine, people around us are happier. People that support us better. We liberate those around us. We provide opportunities and growth, and there's this light and this aura of hope that comes from shining our light and speaking our truth and using our voice to do these good and great things.
Yeah, and you talk about strength in vulnerability, and I think if you had to describe, you didn't have to describe. If I had to describe how one guiding principle for men, I would think that principle is don't be vulnerable. Men, they disdain the concept of being vulnerable, and I'm not sure it's a fear thing, but you don't want to be quite literally caught with your pants down, right? That's the thing, is you spend a lot of time protecting. We are very protective people. We're designed to be protective. And one thing we want to avoid is being vulnerable. But you've said that there is strength. The real strength comes from getting through the fear that's there in vulnerability.
Yeah. So a lot of this idea of strength and vulnerability is, like you mentioned, going through it, going forward with it, of addressing, I might not do something very well if you're an athlete, or if you're in a boardroom of a business, being like, hey, I don't have that answer, and owning that answer, that like, I don't have it, but I can do the work and I can figure it out and I can work through and do it. And additionally, you mentioned the fact that males as society are taught not to be this vulnerability. And with that is this idea around mental health awareness, and for people struggling like myself with anxiety and depression.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to a little bit about that fear and the vulnerability thing. So, the way I see it, I'm a statistician working at a company trying to help patients with cancer, and And the vulnerability for me comes in from someone says to me, hey, can you do an analysis to do X, Y, and Z? And there's a risk there because they may ask me to do something that I don't know how to do. I mean, I've been doing this for a very long time. I've been doing this 30 years. I got advanced degrees in mathematics and statistics. But there's stuff I still don't know how to do. But if I say, oh yeah, I can do that, and I put up this front of protection against me, what I've really done is hurt myself. I've weakened my position, right? Because I've said I can do this, and now hey, they're all trusting me behind there. What I really need to do is say, right now, I don't know how to do this, but I do know I can figure out how to do this, or I can get the right people to do this, or I can figure out if this is the right or the wrong thing to do. And that honesty is freeing. It is incredibly empowering and strengthening. And it's vulnerable, but it leads to strength.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to do, to be in a position like you are, very well educated, very smart, very proficient in your field, and be like, you know what? I might not be able to do that. There's a strength, there's a liberation, there's a truth to that statement that allows you to then look at the thing in a new light and be able to be like, okay, how do we go through this and get to what we want? There's a progress to go forward with it.
Right. And a lot of that comes to finding out where you are weak, right? It's a self-scouting kind of thing. Yeah. It was like, so if I know I have trouble, if I know I have trouble hitting the curveball, I can try to hide that, like by telling them in batting practice, don't throw me curveballs, or to I don't know, to not swing at curveballs or something like that. But very soon, the opposition is going to find out that I can't hit a curveball, and I'm toast. All right, if I can recognize that that's where my weakness lies, then I can fix that. All right. Yeah. And that's a real, I've seen that. I saw that teach in calculus, and I've seen that in sports and everywhere else. You've got to find out where you're weak so you can strengthen yourself there.
Yeah. I mean, my personal athletic performances, I was, not very strong when I started high school, and I worked with, and I put myself in position to be like, hey, I had a friend who was a year older than me, who was a lot stronger and knew more about fitness, and he helped me, and he really inspired me to like put in the work, and he would support me in doing that work, even if I was 100 pounds lighter and 7 feet shorter. But like, there's strength in going to a guy who knows more and be like, hey, help me, because I want to get there. And then there's that empowerment, and there's that strength building that comes from that as well.
Yeah, but getting to the point where you have to go to somebody and you say, help me with this, that's a difficult thing to do. That's the vulnerability. That's the fear. And, they say, courage is not absence of fear. Courage is action regardless of fear. It's working through the fear. Even when the fear is there, it's going. And courage is the virtue, right? Courage is the virtue. Lack of fear has no virtue. The virtue sits in courage and the ability to get through the things that are holding you back. And I tell you, there are a few things that are as fearful as vulnerability for a man, certainly in the society. I'm sure it's for women too, but I can't speak from that seat. So, but that is the thing we have to work through. So, Zach, now you mentioned the mental health aspect of this, and it is late January when we're recording this, and this will drop in early February. So, and February is what do they call it? Mental Health Awareness Month or something like that in the NHL?
So the NHL has since 2012 used February to launch their mental health campaign. It started actually with the Vancouver Canucks after the summer of 2011. And then they've used it to raise awareness for specifically men struggling with mental health issues, and to allow them to feel comfortable in seeking help.
Now, you had told me that there were a number of things in the NHL a couple years prior to 2012 that led to this decision, and some of it dealt with the Canucks.
Yeah. So Kevin Bieksa, who played for the Canucks at the time, really spearheaded the movement. But in the summer of 2011, there were 3 separate suicides in the off season. between in the summer that affected these players. One of the players was Kevin BX's best friend.
So, okay, so I'm going to make sure people know the story here. In summer of 2011, between seasons,
Yep.
there were 3 professional NHL hockey players, world-class athletes,
Yep.
by every account, probably millionaires,
Yep.
top of their game, young men, physically fit, good looking, ability to skate. They are on top of the world every night, competing and fighting for the Stanley Cup. And 3 of them that summer took their life.
Yes. Yeah. And then one of them was my favorite player as well. So it personally struck me, and it hit a nerve. And as more news came out, and as the NHL focused on this and began bringing light to it, I did the same, and I started kind of peeling back the onion layers and learning more about this mental health awareness world.
Yeah. So these now, and I gotta believe that, and this is where it gets interesting, because you can find in any environment, you can find some people that thrive and are super healthy and mentally stable. And you have some people that are living on the edge, and they're wacky, and they're way out there. And if you're ever going to rise to the top of a lot of places, it's a difficult climb. And like, whether it's gymnastics, I always think about sports in these contexts, but I think in business too, it's a hard row. Zach, I think law school's got to be like that if you really want to climb. But there are, you told me a number of stories of some really toxic environments growing up for these players, and what they would go through to make it to what we might call the show.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these guys dealt with, verbal abuse from coaches being like, hey, you have to be tough. And tough meant, you're blocking shots, you're playing through a broken foot and a torn ACL at the same time, not separately, at the same time. Because if you're not, as a 17-year-old kid, you got no chance to go pro. And that mentality continues to be perpetuated into the NHL, and these guys who are struggling with injuries, and additionally maybe mental health injuries, because depression is a disease. It's a sickness. It's not a weakness. And understanding that, and then having people to be talking to mental health professionals about these issues to be able to put them in a position to be successful is a difficult thing to do, especially when the society around it is so hesitant to talk about these type of things.
Yeah, so there's the masculine culture is people use the term toxic masculinity, and there are components, and I've seen this, Zach, you've seen this. There are components of masculinity that, if they are taken or directed in the wrong, if they're taken to the wrong extreme, or if they're used in the wrong pursuits, that they are toxic. And apparently youth hockey is a place where that's rampant.
Yep.
And you had mentioned stories of parents and of coaches who were who made it, how should we say it, less than ideal place for a kid to grow up.
Yeah.
Than hockey.
Yeah. Sports are supposed to be a release for kids. It provides them an opportunity to have fun, all those other good things. But when there's coaches and parents who are berating, verbally abusive, physically abusive to these kids, it does not create that space, and it takes away, and it can lead to some other bigger issues down the line.
Yeah. So and we have witnessed that. Not, Zach, you didn't play hockey.
No,
you play a little hockey now.
Yeah.
Minnesota Law School League, but we've seen that in other sports. You've seen it in certain sports in certain areas, and you've also not seen it in certain areas, and it's that compare and contrast of coaching and mentoring styles that's really impacted where you are now.
Yeah, I had my football coaches in high school and my rugby coaches in high school. If you would draw them on a line and be like nice and kindness and happiness, and not nice and kindness and happiness on one end, the rugby coaches would drift more to the happiness and cuddly and want to give you a big bear hug. And the football coaches were all the big, rough and tough, scruffy. You're not allowed to cry and show weakness. And growing up for a lot of my time in high school, it was spent in the football locker room. It's, it ingrains in you this sense that, I can't show that, or if I show that, then therefore I'm weak. And with my rugby coaches, and as I've grown up a little bit more, I've realized that showing that side of me, that crying side, that emotional side, is a strength, and it creates power by embodying it and going forward with it.
Well, you do come from a big family of big criers, I guess, as any Donahue celebration will attest. There's many tears shed, oftentimes in joy, but we've been fortunate to not have a lot of heavy sorrow. But there's a line too, right? I mean, so it is interesting that that there's this whole idea there's no crying in baseball, and I mean I've heard that, and you know what, I think I agree with that, and I agree with a lot of times you gotta rub some dirt on it and get back out there, and there's got to be this. It's really an interesting thing because you have to be able to acknowledge that the side that you do have to be tough. You have to be tough. Life is hard, and you have to be tough. On the other hand, that comes with emotion, and you have to be able to process that emotion successfully in order to be successful. And I think it's that second piece, the inadequate processing of that. You do have to do that. If you don't in both directions, if you don't do it right, you can't have a society of pansies. On the other hand, you can't have a society of just alpha males. That's going to drive you nuts.
Yeah. I mean, I think you mentioned it, and I think you put it in a lot better words than I can ever describe it. But you need I'll say the release of talking through these emotions. And for me, specifically after I injured my shoulder, my depression and anxiety got really bad. It was really dark for 24 months. That's pretty much the truth. During that time, I also started law school, and that was not, retrospectively looking back, that was not the best decision. But I'm thankful because I'm not at that place anymore, because I took the initiative on myself to seek help and to own this thing and to win this fight, because it is a fight at times. And going forward, I have developed a toolkit and a list of strategies to help me cope with these things and to manage it so that I don't have to deal with the fact that my brain sometimes gets really, really dark for a really positive person.
Yeah. And a lot of us, I would be, how would I say this? I would bet that the majority of us out there have sought at some point in time certain psychological services, whether they are formal in the sense of going to some licensed professional, whether it's calling your old friends from high school and chatting with them and trying to build that relationship. I had phone calls and discussions. I do a lot of what my wife calls a psychologist at work. I do a lot of that, and I certainly am not licensed to do things. If things get really bad, we want to bring in the big guns. But I think we all have that obligation, Zach, to provide help for those who need it. And sometimes that's noting that a teammate is down and you help them get through it. Sometimes it's just noting that they're down, and the fact that you recognize that is sufficient for them to get it back up. And sometimes it's hey, you just got to pull yourself up, and other times it's, you know what, let's spend some time on the couch and talk about what's causing this, because there are some things that aren't lining up. You are a child of God, and you're meant to shine.
Yeah, you mentioned it. We are meant to shine, and by addressing these vulnerabilities and specifically these mental health issues, I think we give ourselves the opportunity to shine, because we can then, at least with my anxiety and depression, I've realized what triggers are for me and what the opposite of a trigger is, whatever that is. I think to reverse the issue is I see what that stuff is, and I'm able to put myself in situations now where I don't feel most 95% of the time that I have to worry about this type of stuff anymore. Now I feel like for the first time in such a long time, I'm living life. I'm seeing and I'm feeling things clearly. There's no veil. There's no numbness around me. I get to truly experience the adventure of life, and it feels so good to do because I took the steps, as terrifying as they were, that first therapy session I went into, of addressing myself, the issues I had, and how I needed to change my life to live the life I want to live.
Yeah, no, we talked. We talk a lot about, and we did even back when you were just, first grade basketball or whatever it is. We talked a lot about team, what we call team love, and we didn't. There's different. If you were Greek, I'm sure we'd have a special word for this. It might be something like philios, and so. But there's real love that takes place amongst teammates, certainly, and it is not the same kind of love that takes place between spouses. And we have mentioned that in general, the love we're talking about is willing the good of the other, kind of a Aquinas look at love. But you've said you've seen that a lot on teammates, the real value of openly having that love for your teammates.
Yeah, the openness I experienced specifically in my college playing career, of guys who were just like, we just wanted to see each other succeed. Like, the end of the day, that's what it was. And like, even if it was just, grabbing a coffee with, two teammates and just hanging out and watching film, or hanging out and watching basketball, or whatever it may be, there's this comfort with, looking out for your mate, making sure that they're doing okay and providing them the support they need. I know I had teammates in college, specifically freshmen and sophomore, who, maybe they were going through some academic struggles, or they kind of felt like they didn't necessarily belong. I would make an attempt to make sure, like, they were at practice, and if they weren't at practice, I would go check in on them and, grab a meal with them, be a teammate, show that love, show that care, because it might sound really cheesy to like go on a bro date and get a coffee with a teammate. And like, I get how that sounds, but like, also at the end of the day, like, sometimes we just want to be around people who care about us, and people who want to see us be successful. One of my favorite memories from law school is I was out with lunch with some friends. I don't think I spoke the entire time other than ordering my dinner, my lunch, because I was just around people who just were happy that I was there spending time with them. There's that comfort in understanding like your place and your role, and like people around you who make a big positive difference.
So I want to address two things, because I think one of them is the situation of how do we help others get from the vulnerability to strength,
Yeah.
to make the passage. And the other one is I want to address is how do we as individuals, how do we know when it's time to, I don't know, to take take that leap, to fight through that fear, to say, you know what, I'm going to need, dude, I need some help, whether it's professionally or whether it's just informally. Or so let's do the first one. So how do you, as a teammate, whether it's sports or whether it's business or family or whatever group you're in, right? We're all in this thing together. So in one of those situations, how do you create the culture that encourages open emotion discussion and the virtue that comes with making yourself vulnerable?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and I can talk about this for days as well, is just be kind to each other. Um, when people tease you all the time and joke around with you, even if they're your friends, it's going to get old really quick. But if you provide that space, that place of comfort, people will eventually, they feel comfortable being around you, so they might open up. It took me a long time to get to the point to open up. And I had friends who helped me get there. And when I got there, I realized, you know what? I can't just rely on dinners with friends. I have to go seek somebody to help with all these other things going on upstairs for me. And by doing that, I have realized what matters in my life, what I want to get out of life, and what negative things in my life I needed to get rid of so I could live those other two things that I mentioned. So I can truly go forward and be the best version of Zachary Matthias Donahue I can.
You mentioned that a culture that's teasing all the time, and I think a lot of guys, it's an interesting play because guys spend a lot of time, and maybe girls do too. I don't know that. There's a lot of teasing that goes on, right? And sometimes it's fun and it's enjoyable, but every now and then there'll be a place where it crosses a line. And if all you ever hear is the teasing, all you ever hear is the pock shots at each other, that can get old. And it's interesting because I grew up in a society in Wisconsin in the 70s where I lived. It was a little industrial, a little farming town with a little bit of industry base. It wasn't a hard scrabble town like South Philly, right? But it was a place where it was pretty. It was rough enough that there was a lot of the poking, it was a difficult place to be open and vulnerable. All right. So that's the thing. And Zach says this a lot, be kind. And there's different ways to be kind, but I have found, I'll tell you this, it is so much better to be overly kind than to be overly harsh. It's like, you know what? It just makes people want to be around you and it brings out the good in them. And then when they do have an issue, they feel comfortable raising it. If they're in a situation where like, man, I always get ripped on whenever I say anything, what's the chance that they're going to come to you and they're going to say, hey, I'm hurting inside?
Yeah, you mentioned it right on the head. Like if you hear that, that jokingly teasing, it's still teasing at the end of the day. And if someone's like, why would I want to talk to you about this issue? You're just going to make fun of me and be like, or say it's not real or it's all in your head or it's these other negative things that make you feel by them saying that worthless. And then if you're feeling worthless, you have nowhere else to go and it gets worse and it gets darker. And I don't like living in a society where that's what people feel like. I want people to feel that they can openly say like, hey, I've been through this. I've struggled with this, but now I'm on the other side of it. I feel confident. I feel empowered to do and chase what I want to do. And whatever happens, I'm here for it.
And you say what by lifting others up? We lift. What's the way you say it?
We rise by lifting others. If I pull somebody else up with me, we're both going up, and that's pretty great to me. Or you know what? If I have to, I'll bring myself down to bring you up.
Right. No, that's the first thing about the culture of doing that, and a lot of it comes from just establishing that trust that someone confides in you. It's like being honest, being protective of others, and being thoughtful, and that's what love is, right? The other thing is, how do you, if you are sitting here right now listening to this, going, well, these guys seem to me they're talking to what I'm feeling right now. How do you, what do we tell them to say to help them get past the fear? The fear can be just absolutely
controlling and numbing and paralyzing. You mentioned it.
How do you get by
it's really hard. I think you have to understand that other people are going through the same thing you are. You are not alone. People have been through this. People have gone to the other side, and people have been successful. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not weak. You're not bad. You're not a failure for any of these things you're feeling. You have a sickness. It's not a weakness. And the moment you recognize it as a sickness and not a weakness, you can become so powerful because you can manifest that thing. You can weaponize that thing to say, I'm gonna fight this and I'm gonna fucking win. And people can't take that from you.
Yeah, I hear you. So we have now crossed the line.
Yeah, we're gonna have the explicit tag on this one now. I'm sorry.
But in all seriousness, all right. In all seriousness, this is something you got to fight, and we're not opposed to fighting. All right, we're all in favor of doing everything you can to win when you are in competition, as long as you're playing fair and by the rules. And whether that's in business or in sports or in school or whatever it is. And when you're fighting for mental health, we want you to knock it out of the park. All right. So here's the thing. We're going to say that if you got something that you're carrying and you're not sure who you want to talk to, you can have anybody you want send us a note. We'll feed the notes and we'll help you go in the right directions. If you feel more comfortable, you want to send a note to the Bufnaglers, hit us up. Send us a note, bufnagle@bufnagle.com. That comes right into the main switchboard there, and we will keep everything as confidential as it needs to be. There are helplines out there. Call them up. Don't hesitate to call those things. We joke, Zach, I've said it a number of times, with great podcasts comes great responsibility. And I say that jokingly because I don't think we have a great podcast necessarily. I think we're trying to do some good. But there are people listening, and I know that people have heard what we've said, and some people are appreciating what we're saying. So if you have something you need to talk to somebody, let us know, or call your local community helpline thing and get the help you need. We certainly, if we reach out and we help, then we will consider the work that we do here. We'll consider that. That's successful. So
Yeah, I think you nailed it. Seek the help, and then if you guys ever need anything, we're here. I'm always willing to have a conversation because I know what it's like. I have experienced these things. I have started addressing these things, being vulnerable with myself, being vulnerable with my friends, and I have realized that my friends care deeply about me and they want to see me be successful. I guarantee your friends do too. So take the time to understand that, yeah, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, but no one's going to feel bad for you because they want to see you do the best you can do. And there's no taking that away.
Yeah. And so there's what I think it's from Macbeth, is that the only way out sometimes is through.
Yep.
Right. And that's one of those things that's going to be tough. Now, Zach, you mentioned a little earlier, you removed negative things from your life. And I know we have discussed a little bit. We discussed alcohol, and your father is not much of a drinker. And I don't think you are either. And I'm not saying that alcohol is a bad thing, but if it's messing with you, that's one of the easiest things to get rid of. And probably one of the hardest. It is, what do they say, ubiquitous. And it can provide great joy. I'm a big fan of wine at weddings and things like that. But it is, man, but I still do love a good Diet Coke. All right. So it's, you have to live with the world you got, but know that if that's an issue for you, if alcohol or any other drugs are messing you up, then you know what? It's, that may be a thing that could really help straighten you out.
Yeah. For me, alcohol was a negative thing to my brain, especially after I injured my shoulder, because I could go out with friends and I could have a drink and feel like everything was fine, but instead by drinking, my brain just went darker, and this idea of, after my shoulder injury, that I didn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, and there was so much negative thought became consistently coming up by drinking, and I just thought it was normal and fine because I was with people. By realizing the fact that alcohol did that to me and taking that out, my life has been significantly clearer since I decided to quit drinking, getting rid of it, and I have no plans on going back because I get to live life fully and to experience the adventure of it so much purer and at a higher level now. And it's if, like I said, if you need help, if you need a place to start, I'm always here to talk, and I want to see all of our listeners, wherever they are, be successful. So
yeah. So all right, with Zach, that's it's kind of, we had a series, a couple episodes that have been a little bit less than exorbitantly jovial, but these are important things to talk about. And hopefully, if you're just driving in your car, you take some of these things with you, and make good of them. If I can summarize, Zach, today, it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to admit that you need some help. So if you need it, go get it. Otherwise, stay tough. Right? There's nothing wrong with tough. Tough is good. and know that probably the hardest, we teach sports. I go back to sports again because it's so important for kids. The reason we teach sports is not so that you know how to hit the curveball or that you know how to make the field goal or shoot a free throw. Or like, we teach you these lessons so that when you hit them in life, you know that you can, right? You can overcome. You can become. You can rise to these occasions, and we want you to do that. And whatever it takes, whatever assistance you need, let us know, and we'll help you out. And Zach, I'm going to leave it at that. We'll have something. We'll be less dark in the future, but these are important topics, and let us know what you think.
Yeah, these are important topics. We're here to support you. We want to see everyone succeed. You said we play sports because they teach us these lessons. You've been through something, you can get through the next thing. But yeah, so we thank you all for listening. So go seek the good, be the good, and spread the good. Enjoy the adventure of life.